Part 36. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 351. Chapter 351. Who is she? Breathing and smelling each other. She didn't dare to move at all. Her long eyelashes flickered like butterfly wings, and her watery eyes looked at the boss. His deep eyes, straight bridge of nose. Her cheeks felt feverish and her heartbeat quickened. He was distracted, but he restrained himself. This was a tatami in a tea room, and he couldn't be in such a careless place. He let go of her, pressed his forehead against hers, and said in an unclear tone, "Go home and continue, et." "Who wants to continue with you?" Her cheeks burned crimson. Lilei chuckled and stood up. She also sat up quickly and turned her back to him to adjust her clothes. Her heart was still beating wildly and she even buttoned several buttons wrongly. He watched her hurried movements and laughed muffledly behind his back. Even the tips of her ears were red. "Let me help you," Lilei's deep magnetic voice. Her body stiffened, and she was so flustered that she didn't know whether it was better to refuse or not. In this dazed moment, Lilei had already walked behind her and wrapped his arms around her body. Xia Xiaoling has never felt that time has been so long. Just a few minutes feel like a whole century. She waited almost with tears of gratitude for him to finish buttoning. When he let go of her, she let out a long breath and almost collapsed. Thank God, it was finally over. But she felt faintly lost and empty, as if she was nostalgic for his arms and legs. "Xiaoling, you are really hopeless." She severely despised herself in her heart. The two of them waited for a long time and finally got fully equipped. Xiaoling put on her coat, scarf, and sunglasses and left from the tea room first. Lilei was afraid that there would be paparazzi outside, so he stayed for more than an hour before going out through the side door in the other direction. When Xiaoling returned to her residence at night, she tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. One moment, the boss's extremely handsome face appeared in my mind, and the other moment, his hot fingers. She felt that she was crazy. How could a woman who had lived two lives become like a pregnant girl? She hugged the duvet and rolled around for a long time. Then she got up from the bed and went to the next door with bare feet to harass Luoluo. "Tell me, what is it like when you are thinking about someone in your heart and can't sleep?" Luoluo was drowsily asleep when she pulled him up, wondering whether he should throw this roommate out, throw him out, or throw him out. He closed his eyes and fell on the pillow. "A man, right? You're in love with Spring, just find someone to sleep with." Xiaoling was stunned. She didn't expect that the always pure Luoluo would actually say such words. You, are you really Luoluo? "Oh, don't make trouble." Luoluo was having a good dream. He closed his eyes and swatted her away like a fly. "Goddess, wait for me, goddess." Xiaoling. Silently looking at the drool dripping from the corner of Luoluo's mouth, this little girl is no longer the innocent and cute little girl in the training camp. She has grown up and is beginning to miss Spring. Frustrated, Xiaoling left Luoluo, who was sleeping like a dead pig, and ran back to her room to be in a daze. Over there, Lilei was sitting in the study room of his apartment. The email flashed on the computer screen. He clicked it and took a look. What was sent back was the analysis of the ancient text on Xiaoling's amulet. Sure enough, they were birthday numbers, one was his and the other one, but it made his heart skip a beat. The age is wrong. His Xiaoling is only 18 years old according to her resume. According to her simple and innocent character, she is indeed like a young girl who has not had much experience. She has not yet been polluted by the sinister world of the adult world, has not yet worn away her innocent edges, and has not yet become sophisticated. However, the age listed in the birth date is a full round older than her. This is simply unbelievable. Even if she had plastic surgery or was injected with some kind of drugs to look younger, her character cannot be faked. How could a woman who has lived for so many years still maintain such a childish and silly look? Hold on, there is a woman. Yasin Ling looks very similar to her, and her age is also consistent. The late Queen of Heaven, Xiaoling. Could it be said that Yasin Ling is Xiaoling? Li Lei was frightened by his thoughts and immediately checked Xiaoling's birthday information. The result he found made him relieved. Great, their birthdays were completely inconsistent. It's right to think about it, Queen Xiaoling is already dead, how can she come back to life? Even Master Xia may not be able to control the cycle of life and death. Li Lei poured a glass of wine to calm himself down, guessing in his mind that maybe Xiaoling had undergone some kind of surgery before and had plastic surgery to look like Yasin Ling, or maybe she looked very young. Is she that old? No, it doesn't matter, it's just a change from brother-sister love to brother-sister love. He will always like her only. Li Lei, whose heart was ups and downs, forgot one thing. Yasingling's birth date can be faked, but why can't Xiaoling? Xiaoling was originally an orphan and did not know her exact date of birth. The birthday she announced to the public was actually the day when Pei Xian adopted her. She called that day the Day of Redemption. Her love affair with Pei Xian is too hidden. Only Pei Xian himself and a few people close to her know about the secret of her birthday. As for the outside world, everyone thought that the information she published in the official information was accurate. As long as you are not Xiaoling, anyone is fine. Li Lei murmured. Xiaoling and Pei Xian's love was vigorous. If it were her, he might have been out of the love war before it even started. He would never accept such a result. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 352. Chapter 352. Close your eyes. Xiaoling got up the next morning with 2 dark circles under her eyes and a hoarse voice. She waddled to Wei Shaiyin's recording studio to record a song, but was scolded by Wei Shaiyin. With a voice like yours, you should change your career and run a street stall as soon as possible. Can you sing? Do you know how to protect your body? No matter how good your talent is, you can't withstand your ruin. What did you do last night? You knew you had to record today, so you didn't take a good rest. Xiaoling was wronged. She went to bed very early yesterday. You can't blame her for insomnia. If she had to blame, it was Li Lei. If she hadn't been thinking about him over and over in her heart, how could she have been awake so late at night, crawling to chat with Luo and still get a little bit cold from the cold? But Wei Shaiyin felt that she was even more unjust. Do you think any singer is like you? 3 days of fishing and 2 days of surfing the internet, and every now and then, you are not in the best condition. How could I be so unlucky to meet you like this? The album will be released next spring. If you can't finish recording, jump off the roof of this building. Xiaoling was obedient and vowed to complete the mission. Her new album has been in preparation for a long time, and has been delayed several times due to various reasons. The task that was supposed to be completed last month is still far from progress, and it will be postponed until next year. Thousands of fans are eagerly waiting for it, and they have expressed their determination to stay with Xiaoling and wait unswervingly. Many media praised her for her good hunger marketing. God knows, this is simply too late. She went into the studio to record again, switching to a song with a lower key to record first, to suit her voice, which was not in good condition today. The recording was good this time, and the slightly hoarse tone has a unique charm. Wei Shaiyin scolded others, but after she finished recording the sound, he brought her warm honey water. In his words, people are just like speakers, they need to be well maintained before they can work. Xiaoling was speechless. In his eyes, she was just a tool. I have been busy like this in the dark for a long time. That night, after she finished recording, Li Lei drove to pick her up. She jumped into the back seat of the Porsche and closed the door. Go to the Star Entertainment Weekly magazine. I have to do an interview tonight. Lilei started the car and smiled, it's already pushed. I'll take you to a good place. What? Pushed? Xiaoling was surprised and looked sideways at him, what's going on? Today is your birthday, don't you remember? Lilei still smiled. Birthday, birthday. Xiaoling was like a thunderbolt. She was so busy recently that she actually forgot about this matter. But which birthday is it on? Her first reaction was the birthday of her previous life. After all, more than 10 years had passed since she was adopted by Pei Xian, and her memory was particularly deep. But that's not right, it was late spring or early summer. Yezingling's birthday? That's not right, it doesn't seem to be the date on her ID card. That is the birthday on the amulet, she asked cautiously. Master Boss nodded and glanced at her strangely, of course I want to celebrate your real birthday. What's the point of having a fake ID card? You can't remember what day it is. How can she not remember? She never asked Xiaomoyan at all and had no idea which date he was carving. In this way, Lilei really went to investigate the words on her amulet in private. Sure enough, his brother was right. With Lilei's concern for her, it was impossible for him to let something unknown wear on her body. She felt warm in her heart, but she said, of course I remember. I was so busy that I forgot about it. So, you want to celebrate my birthday now? The boss turned the steering wheel and made a sound from his nose. Would they be unhappy if I promoted the interview from Star Entertainment Weekly? Lin Yunan must also be unhappy too, Xiaoling asked. It's been rescheduled, Lilei said, so what if Lin Yunan is unhappy? You are an actress, do actresses understand? It doesn't matter if you occasionally act arrogant and cause a little trouble for others. It's a big relationship, Xiaoling said. In her previous life, she relied on her privileges to torment people in all kinds of ways. As a result, she gained a reputation that was criticized by many in the industry, and everyone pushed her against the wall. Lilei was a little surprised and turned to look at her. When did you become so good? I've always been so good, Xiaoling glared at him. Mr. Boss looked like you are being arrogant right now and I don't care about you. He turned the steering wheel and said, then let's drive to the magazine office now and wait until you finish the interview before we go there to play. No, Xiaoling, the classmate was in a bad mood. I made an appointment with them first and then cancelled it. Maybe they have arranged other activities. Now if you say you still go at the original time, they will kill me. Who taught you these? You don't seem to be that worldly person. Lilei, what do you mean? Xiaoling glared at him again, are you saying I'm stupid? I did not say. That's what you meant. I'm not. You are, you still don't admit it? It's really not. That is. Okay, I am. The boss compromised. Unexpectedly, classmate Xiaoling was even more unhappy. Turn around and face him. Lilei. Why is it becoming more and more difficult to raise this child? Don't be angry, he coaxed her patiently. Lin Yunan negotiated with the magazine and coaxed him into submission, and happily sent him to the door. It's okay, don't worry. Well, Lin Yunan, as a top agent in the industry, seems to have such ability. That's the trouble you caused, Xiaoling still glared at him. I asked Lin Yunan to deal with the aftermath for you. Return to Tianyi, I will take care of the aftermath for you. The boss is still smiling. Who is this? Xiaoling rolled her eyes at him, turned on the music in the car, and ignored him. Lilei drove quietly for a while. Where are you going? Finally, Xiaoling couldn't restrain her curiosity and asked. Guess the boss smiled evilly. How much did you sell me for? This is not Xiaoling's fault, it's because the expression on a certain boss's face is too evil. Lilei was unhappy. Am I that bad? Xiaoling, you are the worst. Since there was nothing to talk about today, the boss simply said, we are almost there. Close your eyes and don't open them. When you get to the place, I will tell you to open them again. Xiaoling looked around. Outside the car window was the endless night and the street lights were dim. Ever since she was imprisoned and tortured in a dark basement in her previous life, she had always been afraid of the dark. Even when she went to bed every night, she would turn on a light in the bedroom. Now, close your eyes. In a strange place. Faintly, fear and uneasiness came again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 353. Chapter 353. I'll give you a night of fireworks. Lilei looked at her face and said in a gentle voice, I'm here. It's just one sentence, but it's strangely soothing. Xiaoling suddenly wasn't so scared anymore. He had done so many things for her and was even willing to sacrifice his life. What else could he not do? As for the shadows of the past, it is also time to work hard to get rid of them. Little by little, she closed her eyes carefully. The world fell into darkness, and it was also dark outside the car window. This realization made her anxious. At this time, Lilei's voice rang out at the right time, let me sing to you. What do you like to hear? The familiar voice slowly made her relax. Although she was still nervous, it seemed that the darkness was no longer so unbearable. Can you still sing? She also spoke to divert her attention. What can you sing? She recalled that when they first met a long time ago, she had a fever in the mountains, and she vaguely heard him talking in a nonsensical way to coax a child. The singing voice was really unpleasant. I wonder if there is any progress now? Lilei said happily, I can't sing many songs, but I've heard all of your songs. Rainy Day, Eyes Under the Mask. Stray Cat, he picked one at random and started humming when singing. The tune is still in a straight tone, and the tune is unknown to which Java country it belongs to. Xiaoling also knelt down. This is what he is singing now really the same song as what she originally sang? Spare me, she said weakly, brother, do you dare to sing harder? I'm serious, classmate Li Xiaoli, I was injured. I am also very serious, classmate Xia Xiaoling covered her ears, I won't listen, I won't listen, I won't listen. Your boss at Tianyi is simply the wisest choice I have ever made in my life. If you become a singer, Tianyi it has to go out of business. You come back to rescue Tianyi. Li Xiaoli's voice was soft and waxy. Xiaoling shivered with coldness. The two of them talked and made noise all the way, and unknowingly the journey passed quickly and they reached their destination. Lilei parked the Porsche and still told her not to open her eyes. He helped her get out of the car and held her hand. His palms were dry and warm, holding hers firmly and forcefully, making her uneasy heart calm again because she couldn't see the unfamiliar environment. The world was dark, but with him by my side, it seemed like there was nothing to fear. She was led by him and walked forward step by step. Beside my ears, there is the gentle night breeze, and the sound and breath of water. She couldn't help but ask, where is this? He smiled, a very beautiful place. After walking for an unknown distance, he said, we're here, open your eyes. Xiaoling still opened her eyes, blinked, and adjusted to the light. Then, she was stunned by the scene in front of her. She was standing in front of a deep and long underwater tunnel, with deep-sea fish swimming above her head and on both sides. There were no lights around, and the jellyfish and unknown small fish were shining with a faint but beautiful light, illuminating the entire darkness. It's so beautiful, she exclaimed in a low voice, raising her head to look at the fish through the glass. Girls are born to like shiny things. The water in front of them is like a whole universe, and these jellyfish and small fish are the stars that light up or die in the depths of the universe. Wow! Her eyes were filled with stars, her smile was as innocent as a child's, her palms pressed against the glass, and she walked forward along the tunnel little by little. Suddenly turned around, "You brought me here? Is this an aquarium? It's so beautiful. I've never been here before." Lilei also smiled. It's an aquarium. He still remembered going there once. While eating in the restaurant, she stared at the small glowing fish in the fish tank for a long time. He remembered it in his heart, specially picked her birthday, and booked a place to bring her there. "Happy birthday," he said. Xiaoling tilted her head slightly and smiled. Schools of fish swam across the sky, and the ripples of water made her cheeks dim. "This is my first real birthday. Thank you, I am very happy." First. The smile on Lilei's lips also widened, which meant that no man, including Pei Ziyan, had ever lived this life with her before. He took a few steps forward and held her hand again. "Let's go, I'll watch it with you." They walked hand in hand through this over 100-meter underwater tunnel and saw penguins, crocodiles, and dolphins. Everywhere she goes, she always marvels, and her silvery laughter echoes in the empty aquarium. In fact, although she had never been to an aquarium in her previous life, she had gone diving in tropical waters. The colorful coral reefs and fish there were as good as those in the aquarium, or even better. It's a pity that Pei Ziyan didn't like to go into the water at that time and would only sit on the beach chair and wait. Even Xiaoyu was not in good health. When she was diving, Xiaoyu stayed with Pei Ziyan, talking and laughing. Xiaoling looked at the coral reefs alone in the water. Although it was interesting, she was lonely after all. How can it be better than now, with the one you love? Look at that dolphin, it's rolling in the water, it's so cute. She held Lilei's hand and her body almost reached the pool, so Lilei had to fish her back out. "How can you be so cute?" Lilei kissed her cheek. "If you like it, I'll take you diving next time." Her eyes even lit up. "Really? Will you go into the water with me?" "Of course." Classmate Li Xiaoli shook his head arrogantly. "I am an expert diver and have fought sharks in the ocean." "Really or not?" She looked at him suspiciously. "The sharks didn't tear you apart." "You really want me to be torn apart?" He pinched her soft face. "Who will you marry if I am torn apart?" You." Xiaoling's face turned red again, and it took her a long time to hold in her words. "You stinking scoundrel." She covered her face and ran away. Behind him, Lilei's bright laughter came. The two of them were tired from playing and sat in the dessert shop to rest. Tonight, the place was reserved by Lilei, and even the service staff were all replaced by his people. At this time, according to Xiaoling's taste as he had ordered in advance, sweet and delicious hazelnut cake and lemonade with honey were served. Xiaoling was sitting on the swing chair, her little feet swaying. "Tan Ying is here tonight. As a special assistant, he is the coordinator of the whole event. Master, the fireworks are ready." "Want to watch the fireworks?" Lilei reached out and scraped the cream off the nose of the little cat across from him, and asked. "There are fireworks." Her eyes lit up again. Okay. Tan Ying went down to direct people to set off fireworks. But he couldn't help but shake his head in his heart. Not long ago, his young master asked with a sad face how to catch up with the girl in front of him. But now it seems that the progress is good. Engagement or marriage are just around the corner. However, as for the old man, thinking of this, Tan Ying's face darkened. The old man's attitude was so resolute, I'm afraid it must have been a difficult time. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 354. Chapter 354 The Servants of Liu Yanshui Pavilion. Fireworks set off. Colorful, bright, and colorful, the entire night sky is covered. Xiaoling was still eating hazelnut cake at first. When she saw it through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she climbed down from the swing chair, took Li Lei's hand and ran out. Look, look, she jumped up and down, pointing her slender and graceful little finger at the distant night sky. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. The last three words were like a murmured sigh. The bright light reflected on her delicate face. She raised her head to look at the fireworks, and Li Lei looked at her. This silly girl, doesn't she know that she is countless times more beautiful than fireworks? Her smile is so bright, her eyes are so clear, and her eyelashes are so thin and soft. Her hand was intertwined with his. Li Lei remembered a saying that he had seen somewhere. If a pair of lovers hold hands in this posture, it means they will never be separated. He doesn't want to be separated from her, he wants to be together for life, life after life, this life, the next life, the next life. Pei Zion, the mystery of his identity, to with it, he doesn't care who she is, what kind of past she has, he doesn't care about these. He didn't care, the only thing he cared about was the smile on her face. Xiaoling, do you know that when you smile, even the world becomes brighter? He leaned towards her and put his arms around her thin shoulders, as if he owned the whole world. The fireworks dissipate. Xiaoling still has something to say, it's so beautiful. How about we come back next year? Okay. Li Lei put her cold little hands into his coat pocket to keep warm, his eyes sparkling. As long as you are willing, we will come every year. Yeah, she nodded vigorously. Unknowingly, it seems that I have become accustomed to his existence, and it is natural for them to be together forever. They walked out of the aquarium leaning on each other. Xiaoling asked him, go home. Li Lei said, it's getting very late. This is the outskirts of the city. It takes a long time to drive back. I have a villa nearby. How about we stay there tonight? Okay. Xiaoling had no objection. Ever since she knew that he had made such a big sacrifice for her, her trust in him had reached an unbelievable level. Let alone staying in his villa for one night, even if he now taking her to the mountains of swords and seas of fire, I'm afraid she will feel confident that there is no problem. Soon, their car arrived at the villa area. It turned out to be Liu Shui Pavilion. Xiaoling recognizes this place. This is the most upscale wealthy area in the city. Many prominent families are proud to own a villa here. The area here is quiet and the environment is as good as a fairyland. The car drove in along the low gentle slope, and sentries in black uniforms saluted them along the way. Xiaoling remembered that she had a villa here in her previous life. Unfortunately, before she could move in, she and Pei Zion had a huge quarrel and got into trouble. Later, in this life, Pei Zion gave Xiaoyu's villa here to her, and she sold it to Li Feng. The past was overturned, and she never thought that the day she actually entered this place would not be to go to the villa that belonged to Queen Xiaoling, or the one she took from Xiaoyu, but to the territory that belonged to Li Lei. Her heart was up and down, and she calmed down while looking at the scenery along the way. The density of the villas here is very low, and the buildings are far apart, providing excellent privacy. Li Lei drove slowly for a long time and finally arrived in front of his house. There were already 2 rows of servants standing straight to greet them. When they saw them, they all bowed their heads. Master, Monsieur, welcome home. Xiaoling didn't expect such a scene, and was a little surprised when she saw them. As far as she knows, Li Lei is not a person who pays attention to such things. Whether it is an apartment in the city or the villa when they first met, the manpower is very streamlined and adheres to the principle of practicality. But here, Xiaoling looked around. The luxurious villa was brightly lit, and many people could be vaguely seen walking around and busy. It was like a small palace. It doesn't look like Li Lei's style. As if seeing her doubts, Li Lei said, that year I just moved to China from New York and started from scratch. This villa was given to me by my uncle. He said that it was not given to me, but for me to marry a wife in the future. Yes. He also said that girls are delicate, unlike brats like me, and they need to be treated like princesses, so they arranged so many servants. Xiaoling has no idea. This uncle is really enthusiastic. What if your wife doesn't like it? You don't like it, Li Lei said immediately, then I'll send them away tomorrow. What do you like? I'll ask my uncle for it. I can't give him an easy way. How can you be such a great nephew? Ah, no, who is your wife? Xiaoling blushed and glared at him. All the servants lowered their eyebrows and pretended not to notice. The housekeeper smiled cheerfully, Master, Mistress, stop standing at the door. It's windy. Come in quickly. Well, in just a few words, he changed his name to Mistress. Xiaoling's classmate burst into tears, I'm not. She is. Li Lei smiled and kissed her forehead, be good, don't make trouble. By the way, this is Uncle John. He was married to my family with my mother. He watched me grow up like a child. Like my uncle. Xiaoling then noticed that Uncle John was a white man, with short platinum hair combed meticulously, shoulders straight, and looking majestic in a butler's uniform. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. Although he had a kind smile line on his face, the light in his eyes was restrained. He was obviously a very calculating man. Hello, Uncle John. Xiaoling greeted her very respectfully. Butler John smiled and nodded, young lady, you don't have to be polite. If you have anything to do in the future, just give me your instructions. I'm really not. Xiaoling blushed again. Li Lei took her hand, walked through 2 rows of respectful servants, and took her to sit down in the room. Then he said to Butler John, Uncle John, Xiaoling has a simple mind and is a bit like my mother. Please take more care of her. Butler John took another look at Xiaoling. This time, his expression was much more solemn than before. Don't worry, young master, I will take good care of young mistress, and there won't be any mistakes. He never makes promises lightly. Promise is to give life to each other. His Miss Jennifer has passed away for so many years, and finally, the young master has grown up and is able to take charge of his own affairs. Isn't his next responsibility to protect the young mistress and the young master's happiness? What's more, the young master said this girl looks like Miss Jennifer. Miss, she was too naive back then, so she died at a young age. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 355. Chapter 355. The dusty past of the Li family. Butler John was a little worried. Can the young lady in front of him survive in Boyun's treacherous Li family? He was also somewhat pleased that the wife the young master chose was so similar to his mother. The servant brought tea. Li Lei took it first and then handed it to Xiaoling diligently. Xiaoling took a brief sip, but her mind was not on this. She was a little curious, what kind of person is your mother? She rarely heard him mention her parents. The only time he said it was when he went to the Li family headquarters. The mother passed away early, and the father married another wife and was busy with business outside. The father and son rarely saw each other throughout the year. I heard that his mother has a mafia background. Is this true? Li Lei waved everyone down, and when there were only 2 of them left in the room, he slowly said to her, she is a very beautiful woman. Her grandfather is the former mafia godfather, and her uncle is the current mafia. My godfather is my uncle. She is a girl and does not have to inherit the family business of fighting and killing. She was raised as a child. She met my father in the Aegean Sea when she was 18 years old and fell in love at first sight. The following story is very cliché. The daughter of a mafia family fell in love with the young and promising heir of the equally powerful Li family. After a brief love, they learned that the other party was already married and had children. Regardless of the man's efforts to stay, and regardless of his curse and vow that he would divorce his wife and marry her, she broke up with him with tears in her eyes. My mother is a rich young lady after all, Lile said. She couldn't bear to be a mistress. She told my father that all those sweet words on her lips didn't count. He could either live well with his wife or come back to her after the divorce. No matter how much my dad begged, she never wavered. Lee's father went to see Mr. Lee and told him that he wanted to divorce his original wife and marry the richest daughter of a mafia family. He fully thought that Mr. Lee would agree immediately, because his wife was just a prostitute, and she accidentally became pregnant with his child. The old man was worried that the eldest grandson of Lee's family would be homeless, so he forced him to marry that woman. And what about Jennifer? She was a real lady from a famous family, well matched. If the Lee family were to marry the mafia, the benefits they would get would be many times greater than they are now. However, Mr. Lee flatly refused. A bad wife will never come to court, he reprimanded Lee's father sternly. Don't look down on Axiong's lack of status and family background. She gave birth to the eldest grandson of our Lee family. This is her status. Her family background. Li Zheng, divorce and remarry. I will never allow it, and you are not allowed to mention it again. If you have such thoughts, why not think more about business and raise your son well? Who does Axiong mean? Lee's father was also angry and defended loudly. When I was young, and I slept with a prostitute out of ignorance, does it count? Dad, Jennifer and I really love each other. You bastard. Mr. Lee still didn't agree to his request and walked away. When they opened the door, they were all shocked. They saw Li Feng, who was only 5 years old, standing at the door, his eyes glowing like a wounded wolf, looking at his father with hatred. As a result, Xiang knew about this matter soon. She was originally a prostitute who was trafficked overseas. She had not read many books and could not come up with any ideas. She only cried, made trouble and hanged herself to vent her grievances. Lee's father was one and the same, and he cursed and swore that he had broken up with Jennifer. However, Axiong, who had always had low self-esteem, was extremely insecure and kept making noises. Finally, Lee's father was so annoyed that he pushed and injured Axiong during a fight. Little Li Feng saw his mother was injured, punched and kicked his father with red eyes, bit his father's arm with his teeth, and bit off a piece of flesh alive. Beast! You are not my son. Lee's father, who was finally pulled away by everyone, pointed at Li Feng angrily. Your mother is a prostitute. You are of a prostitute. Why do you think I am Li Zheng, son of a bitch? You deserve it. He was bitten by Li Feng, and he spoke out the resentment that had been accumulated in his heart for so many years. He had thought about it countless times. If it hadn't been for that moment. It would be fine if he was greedy for pleasure. It would be fine if the son was not his, then he would not be forced to marry a prostitute as his wife, and be laughed at by countless people overtly and secretly. He, Li Zheng, was the eldest son of the Li family, and he was outstanding in ability and brilliance, attracting people to admire him. Even his enemies could not find an excuse to criticize him, until he married a prostitute and gave birth to a son. Became the laughing stock of everyone. Mr. Lee had already checked DNA. It was true that Li Feng was Lee's father's biological son. However, those who didn't like him ignored him. They all had secretive and ambiguous smiles on their faces and whispered to each other in various social situations. Look, that's Li Zheng. I heard that he married a prostitute, gave birth to a son of unknown origin, and was cuckolded. He had nowhere to vent his anger. At this time, he broke away. The people who broke up the fight rushed up and kicked their own sons hard. Asshole! Beast! Bastard! Why don't you die with your prostitute mother? Li Feng, who was only 5 years old, fell to the ground and groaned, with 2 of his ribs broken. Not long after that, Father Li is going to the Golden Triangle to make a deal. Axiong, who was afraid that he would have a private meeting with someone else, cried and made a fuss and wanted to go with him. It's a pity that we can't return together when we go together. No one knows what happened in the Golden Triangle. Li's father came back alive and well, and brought back Axiong's body. Li Feng's eyes turned red from crying and he wanted to fight Li's father desperately. Mr. Li called Father Li into the study. For a whole day and night, no one knew what they talked about. When they came out, Mr. Li announced that Axiong died trying to take a bullet for Father Li according to the eldest daughter-in-law, double the standard. A rich burial. The young Li Feng lowered his head deeply and said nothing. No one knew what he was thinking. From that day on, Li Feng's temperament changed drastically. This past incident was so thrilling that Xiaoling's heart beat with fear and she unknowingly held Li Lei's hand. Then, her voice trembled a little as she asked, "Did Axiong really die taking a bullet for your father?" Li Lei shook his head, "I don't know. It is said that Axiong loved my father very much, and maybe he really took a bullet for him and died. Of course, it is also possible that my father killed Axiong. Grandpa did it for the honor of the Li family and for this lie was made to take care of Li Feng's emotions and his status in the family," he said with a very slight sneer. It was the first time Xiaoling saw him smiling like this, coldly, like a lone wolf in the wilderness. She felt a little sorry for him like this, so she leaned over and hugged him tightly. "You don't like your dad?" she asked softly. "It doesn't matter, you still have me." Li Lei was startled, then looked down at the soft girl in his arms, slowly stretched out his hand and hugged her. The two of them cuddled together. After a while, Xiaoling urged him, "You haven't talked about your mother yet." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 356. Chapter 356 Cute Kid. Li Lei then continued, "Not long after Axiong died, my father returned to the Aegean Sea, found my mother, and proposed to her. Although my mother broke up with my father at that time, she still loved him in her heart. Listen, saying that he was single, she naively agreed to the marriage and happily told my uncle and the others. My uncle and the others investigated my father's situation and found nothing suspicious about the death of his first wife, so they agreed to my mother's marriage. The two families held a grand wedding, which caused a sensation all over the world that year. Not long after marrying into the Li family, Jennifer became pregnant and gave birth to Li Lei. Li Lei is a healthy and beautiful baby boy. He smiles when he meets everyone and everyone likes him very much. He was young, his biological mother was of high status, and she was favored by everyone. In comparison, the gloomy and taciturn Li Feng seemed less lovable. Some people even commented privately, "The son of a prostitute is the son of a prostitute. He won't even smile when he sees his uncle's smile. What a shame, how can he be compared to the son of a mafia daughter who is uneducated?" "Hush, don't talk nonsense, Ah Xiang died to save Li Zheng." "You believe this kind of lie?" the other party sneered. "I see, it was Li Zheng who secretly killed Axiong in order to marry Jennifer." The old man just came up with a nice explanation to take the overall situation into consideration. All kinds of rumors. The pointing and disdainful looks from everyone behind my back. Li Feng hid outside the nursery and saw Jennifer holding the baby in her arms tenderly. The hazy light shone on her body, making her as serene and charming as the Virgin Mary in mythology. And the man who was his father by blood stood beside him with a look of pity on his face, and his expression was gentler than he had ever seen before. Li Feng clenched his small fists. He himself didn't know why, but he hid outside the door of the baby's room every day, looking at the lively scene inside with complicated eyes. On this day, he found that the door and window of the baby's room were wide open, probably because the nanny forgot to close them when she left. By some strange coincidence, he walked in. This is the first time he has seen the baby up close like this. The little baby slept peacefully in the crib, with soft little hands and feet, and bubbles blowing from his mouth. What an ugly and annoying guy. Li Feng thought to himself, it would be better if he didn't exist. If he died, no one would ignore him as the eldest young master, and that couple would be very sad, right? Li Feng smiled happily, stretched out his hand and pinched Li Lei's neck. The little baby was a little uncomfortable being pinched. He twisted his fat and short body and opened his eyes in confusion. His mouth was still spitting bubbles, slightly open, and he looked at the strange and fierce little boy in front of him with a silly look on his face. Suddenly, he grinned widely. Li Feng was stunned for a moment, and felt an inexplicable irritation in his heart. I'll strangle you to death. Make you laugh. His hand used another force, pinching Li Lei very uncomfortable. Li Lei flattened his mouth and was about to cry. Li Feng looked at his watery eyes and unknowingly relaxed his strength. Li Lei thought he was playing with him, so he stared at him curiously, waved his little hands, and laughed babblingly. Li Feng bared his teeth and showed the most ferocious expression to scare him. Li Lei still smiled at him and started to bubble bubbles again. So stupid, Li Feng felt that the child in front of him was hopelessly stupid. What kind of noble bloodline did the rich lady give birth to such a little idiot? He finally found some sense of superiority as a young master, bared his teeth contemptuously at the little idiot on the crib, turned around and left. Wow wow, the little idiot on the bed suddenly started crying. Li Feng turned back to look at him. Li Lei saw his brother's face, maybe it was the wonderful connection between brothers. He grinned again, with undried tears still hanging on his face. Li Feng frowned and still walked forward. Behind him, the little baby started crying again. He paused at the door, fearing that someone would hear the baby's cry, and closed the door of the baby's room tightly. That night, Li Lei developed a high fever, convulsing all over, and was extremely dangerous. The entire Li family was alarmed and gathered outside the baby room in the middle of the night. Jennifer was sobbing helplessly. Li Zheng gently held her shoulders, suppressing his anxiety and speaking softly to comfort her. Even the old man came and asked what was going on. The family doctor said, this situation should be caused by the wind and catching a cold. Aren't the doors and windows closed properly? Mr. Li got angry. Call the nanny over here. Ask her how she does things. Facing the anger of the most powerful person in the Li family, the nanny cried and bitten to death, not daring to admit it. He kept shouting that he was wronged. At this time, a child in the crowd said, "This afternoon, I saw cousin Feng coming out of the nursery." Li Feng didn't know about Li Lei's fever. He was sleeping in his bedroom. In his dream, a little baby with tears on his face grinned stupidly at him, stretched out his fat and short hands, trying to catch him and prevent him from leaving. Brother will come to see you next time. In the dream, he lost the gloomy edge of the day and said softly to the little baby. Since his mother's death, Li Lei was the first person to smile at him in so many years, like a ray of bright sunshine that melted his frozen heart. However, the good dream was quickly interrupted. Someone roughly pulled him up from the bed and threw him heavily to the ground. Beast! You even dare to murder your own brother? I'll beat you to death. Before he could react, the fists and kicks that covered his head and face were already falling, mixed with the hypocritical "don't fight, Xiao Feng is still a child." Xiao Feng was temporarily obsessed. Cousin, please forgive him. The sound of persuading a fight. Li Feng curled up on the cold and hard ground, instinctively protecting his head and face. He didn't know where he was injured, and blood flowed down, blurring his vision. He looked at the face of the person who hit him through the blood. Sure enough, it was Li Zheng, his so-called biological father. Say, why did you want to harm Xiaoliai? Li Zheng lifted him up and asked sternly. He was silent, like a stubborn young wolf. The fists and kicks fell like a violent storm again. Stop, the old man shouted. Everyone fell silent, even Li Zheng stopped beating and scolding Li Feng, who was already covered in bruises. The state-owned legal family has family rules. If Xiao Feng really makes a mistake, it should be dealt with by the family law. How can you beat a child randomly like you? Mr. Li reprimanded Li Zheng and turned to look at Li Feng sternly. Have you been to Xiao Lei's nursery this afternoon? Li Feng said nothing. He has been there. The child who testified against him was still 4 or 5 years old. He was not afraid of anything. I saw him coming out of the baby's room. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 357. Chapter 357 Dowry. Li Feng glared at the child viciously. Mr. Li frowned. When did this child become so sinister? Why did you go to the nursery when no one was around? Mr. Li's tone became more severe, as if he was interrogating a criminal. Did you deliberately open the doors and windows and cause Xiao Lei to catch a cold? Xiao Feng, just admit it, an elder pretended to persuade. We all know that you are jealous of Xiao Lei, and you really mean it when you say that. Isn't it because we gave Xiao Lei more gifts? He is younger than you. So much, it's your brother, you should let him go. Why bother with your brother? Don't make your grandpa angry anymore, admit your mistake, and promise not to do it again next time. That's right, many people agreed. I let Xiao Lei catch a cold on purpose. How can this child be so vicious at such a young age? I'm talking about Jennifer. Someone turned to look at Li Lei's biological mother and said kindly, you have to take good care of this child. His mother is not as noble and well educated as you. His mother, sigh. What else do they want to say? Li Feng had raised his head, still looking like a wounded wolf with a fierce and sinister look in his eyes, and interrupted the other party loudly, not only do I want to harm him, I also want to kill him. Aren't they just a pair of little beasts born between a boy and a girl? What qualifications does he have to be my brother? Obstacle. This time, even Mr. Li was so angry that he said, come here, bring the family law. That day, Li Feng received 30 beatings. He was beaten to a pulp, but he did not say a word. He was punished by the old man to kneel in the ancestral hall. Jennifer secretly brought medicine and food to see him. She didn't know how to face the child left behind by her ex-wife. It seemed that this child had a great prejudice against her. She carefully placed the food next to him. In the future, don't hurt Xiao Lei anymore. You don't have to be jealous of him, I am your mother too. Li Feng spat on her face, looked at her shocked and hurt look, and suddenly laughed crazily. Mom, Mom. Bitch, my mother died a long time ago, she was killed by you. Ha 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 ha. If it's really the mother, why don't you listen to his complaint? Why didn't you ask him if the person with the door and window open was him? No. No one asked him. In the entire Li family, no one cares about him. Then, he won't care about everyone. Don't they all feel sorry for Li Lei? Don't they all say that he is plotting to kill Li Lei? He was Li Feng, not the kind of person who would swallow his anger even after being wronged. Then, he will murder him to show them. The numerous murders that followed, big and small, made it difficult for people to guard against. At first, Li Zheng and Mr. Li beat and scolded him and made him kneel in the ancestral hall, but later he became numb. Little Li Lei grows up day by day, and can run and jump. Strangely enough, this child seems to be born stupid, and he is not defensive at all when he sees people. He is the only one who will grin at Li Feng, like it was the same as the time when he was almost strangled to death when he was a baby. No matter what excessive things Li Feng did to him, he would softly and waxily call out brother, and suddenly flash his big watery eyes. Give Li Feng his toys to play with. Li Lei hugged Xiaoling and spoke in a low and slow voice, My mother told me that my brother had a bad temper because his mother died when he was a child. She said he was a good brother and told me to treat him well. Xiaoling reached out and hugged his neck. Yes, she couldn't imagine such a bad childhood life. Even if she lived a hard life as a child, she was just poor and not like him, facing all kinds of dangers all the time. Sensing that his mood was a little low, she did not move restlessly or act cute as usual, but just hugged him quietly, as if to give him comfort and strength. Li Lei was quiet for a while, and then continued, "My mother is very good to me, but my brother doesn't like her." Whenever Jennifer and little Li Lei play together and laugh happily, Li Feng's eyes will become gloomy. Even he himself couldn't explain what that feeling was. Was it jealousy that Li Lei had taken away the maternal love that was supposed to belong to him? Or are you jealous that Jennifer can also have Li Lei's bright and clear smile like the sun? He just wanted to tear them both apart. Later, Jennifer became pregnant again. Severe reactions during pregnancy, including vomiting, weight loss, lethargy. She no longer has the energy to take care of Li Lei. Li Lei, who was just over 3 years old, has lost his mother's company and often looks very lonely. Even when Li Feng bullied him, his reaction became slow and not as interesting as usual. Li Feng was very unhappy. Then, one evening that summer, Jennifer, who was 9 months pregnant, fell into the pool in the back garden. When someone arrived and rescued her ashore, her face was blue and her lower body was already red, which was a sign of premature birth. Although doctors tried their best to save him, 1 person and 2 people still died. Before she died, she kept looking at me and moving her lips slightly, as if she had something to say to me. Li Lei's voice was very soft, but after all, she didn't say anything. Instead, she turned away everyone. Grandpa stayed. What did she say to the old man? Xiaoling asked softly. Grandpa said that my mother left a dowry for me. I was too young at the time, and she was worried that my father would marry again, so she entrusted the dowry to Grandpa and asked Grandpa to give it to me when I grow up. Your mother is so kind to you, Xiaoling sighed. She didn't know what kind of person her mother was. Has she ever treated her with as much kindness as Li Lei's mother? Li Lei shook his head. He has always suspected that his mother might have said something else to his grandfather. He suddenly asked Xiaoling, if it were you, I mean if, the day you pass away, will you specifically tell your elders about the dowry left to your son? Me? Xiaoling was startled. No way. I don't even have time to cry. Who can remember such complicated things? So maternal love is so great. She paused and added, but it's hard to explain. I don't have a child yet. Maybe my thoughts will be different when I have a child. After all, many mothers will become great for the sake of their children. Li Lei smiled and touched her long hair. Xiaoling is somewhat similar to his mother. They are both very simple people. If there is something that Xiaoling cannot think of, his mother may not be able to think of it either. Maybe my mother really said something else to my grandfather. For example, was it really just a pure accident that she fell into the water? Or is there any inside story? This problem has troubled him over the years, but it has been so long that there is no trace of it. Perhaps, the mystery can only be solved when Grandpa wants to talk about it one day. Or, there is no mystery at all, and the last words are indeed the dowry. After all, these past events were known to him from various sources, and if they were pieced together and restored, they may not be 100% the truth. The speculation based on this may not be accurate. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 358. Chapter 358 Italian Beauty. Xiaoling kissed the corner of his lips. She must be very beautiful, that's why you are so beautiful. Li Lei also lowered his head and kissed her. Well, she was the most beautiful woman in Italy back then. Xiaoling, a classmate, felt a little inferior. I'm not that good looking. Lord Boss tapped her nose. You clown, if I'm the only one willing to marry you, just follow me and be good. You know he doesn't want Xiaoling to be as beautiful as a fairy, that's all, he likes her. There are so many people. What should I do if I look more beautiful? You said I'm ugly. Xiaoling was unhappy and reached out to pinch him. I don't dislike you. Lilei smiled and pinched her casually, it didn't hurt or itch anyway. Xiaoling pinched him a few more times. His muscles were well proportioned but as hard as steel, which made her hands sore from exhaustion. I despise you. She tugged at his arm and was considering whether to get her teeth fixed when suddenly, Lilei handed something to her. Birthday gift, he said warmly. In front of him is a flat box, not big, tied with a beautiful ribbon, and decorated with roses and dry gypsophila flowers. Xiaoling took it and opened it curiously, but was stunned. What she saw lying in the box was Liu Yunshuixi's real estate certificate, with her name written on it. You. She was so shocked that she couldn't speak. It took a long time before she asked, this apartment? Lilei smiled and nodded. This house was originally prepared for my daughter-in-law. She looked down at the real estate certificate in her hand and felt that this affection was worth more than $1,000. She originally thought that the birthday gift would be a bracelet or necklace, but she did not expect that it was a gift from his late mother's natal family to her future daughter-in-law. She looked at the real estate certificate in her hand, and then at the extremely luxurious villa. This is too expensive, I can't accept it. You won't be my wife, his voice deepened. No, she said quickly. As soon as the words came out, I felt something was wrong. You took advantage of me. Then are you willing to be taken advantage of by me? He followed the stick, hugged her, smiled, and kissed her gently. If you have the confidence to spend your life with me, then accept it. His eyes were as deep as night. The sound of the sea is confusing and magnetic, making people intoxicated. To spend your life with such a man? Xiaoling looked at him with some obsession. Her body felt weak, and she couldn't say any words of rejection. What Rong Ping said to her before echoed in her mind. When two people are together, two destinies become one destiny. Why are you so clean? If the water is clear, there will be no fish. You have to get used to it affecting your life. Take it, Xiaoling, he whispered in her ear, his voice like a magic spell. Spend your life with me. Okay. Unknowingly, the words of agreement came out of his mouth. He smiled with satisfaction. She was confused and lost, her eyes were watery in his arms. His fingers were filled with heat and he asked her, go to the bedroom. Her face turned red immediately. A lovely night. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 359. Chapter 359. The Mystery of Yesin Ling. The boss didn't care about her, stole another cent, and hugged her contentedly. This was a consensual matter. Xia Ling was arrogant for a while, and when she got tired and sleepy, she fell asleep in his arms. Lilei didn't bother her this time. He gently carried her to take a bath, ordered someone to change the bedding, put her back on the bed, and covered her with the quilt. He left the bedroom. Butler John said, Master, Tanying is here. Tanying is a very sensible person. If there is nothing very important, he will not go to a private residence to disturb Lilei in his private time. When he heard that he was coming, Lilei said, invite him to the study. As he walked, he buttoned his shirt and hurriedly entered the study. The sun is shining brightly in the study room, and the rows of agar-wood bookshelves exude a light and elegant atmosphere in the winter afternoon. The air is quiet and the fragrance of tea lingers. Tanying was sitting on the single sofa in the corner of the study, and she didn't know what she was meditating on. There was a rare solemn look on her face, and even Li Lei didn't notice it when he walked in front of him. Li Lei sat down opposite him. Boss, he was shocked to realize that he had seen Li Lei. Li Lei asked, "What's the matter?" "You asked me to reinvestigate Miss Ye's history some time ago, and I have already found out," Tan Ying said. They had investigated Ye Xingling's past history a long time ago, and concluded at that time that she was innocent and had a simple background. Although there were various unexplainable doubts about her, everything seemed normal on the surface. "How?" Li Lei asked in a deep voice. "Just some time ago, after he learned Xiao Ling's birth date, he deeply suspected that the girl now living as Ye Xingling was not the real Ye Xingling. So who could she be?" He asked Tan Ying to check again to see if the current Ye Xingling and the past Ye Xingling were consistent in terms of personality, living habits, etc. "When did your temperament change?" Tan Ying said, "When she was a child, Ye Xingling was very cowardly, shy, introverted, and was beaten and scolded at will. She was a very inconspicuous child with no sense of existence. Including the few years when she first entered the training camp, she was bullied by teachers and classmates. When bullied, he doesn't fight back even if he is verbally abused. His singing and dancing are average, his camera skills are also poor, and he doesn't have the brilliance he has now." Li Lei nodded. "How could you see the slightest hint of cowardice in Xiao Ling now? Being bullied? It's good that she doesn't bully others. If anyone dares to bully her, she will definitely take revenge in person. She is arrogant and willful." Tan Ying continued, "She has slowly changed since more than 2 years ago. During that time, she was under a lot of pressure, and her rankings in all the exams in the training camp were at the bottom. If she continues like this, she will soon be dissuaded. She quit. She practiced day and night, was overworked, and passed out several times. Then, suddenly one day, she seemed to have an idea. Her singing skills and dancing skills improved rapidly, and she was soon selected into Wei Shaiyin. The dance shooting team went to your villa to meet you." Tan Ying paused and frowned. "Maybe it's not a coincidence." "Do you suspect that Xiao Ling at that time was no longer Ye Xingling, and that she deliberately approached me?" Li Lei said. "Tan Ying, the possibility is very high. She may be a spy sent by other forces, dormant beside you." Li Lei frowned slightly. "Tan Ying, we have discussed this issue before. Xiao Ling cannot be a spy. Is there any spy who can be as stupid and naive as her and stay with me for 2 years without doing anything? Steal." Tan Ying disagreed. "However, judging from the current development, you are planning to marry her as your wife. As long as she lowers your guard, enters the door of the Li family, and comes into contact with the core secrets, you will not be able to deal with Li again when the time comes. The family is not in a good position. Li Lei, suppose there is really a force behind her, and that force wants to find a woman to marry me. Why didn't they find someone more beautiful or more well-matched? 2 years ago, who could predict so accurately that I would be married now? Fall in love with Xiao Ling. Wait, prophecy." Unexpectedly, Li Lei remembered a person, Xiaoquashi, Xiaomoyan. Things that ordinary people can't do are easy for the Imperial Preceptor. However, if the Imperial Preceptor wants to deal with any force, there are more subtle and unpredictable ways, and there is no need to spend so much effort. There is something wrong with this whole thing. Why did the Imperial Master go to find Xiao Ling alone? And told Xiao Ling his real name? Faintly, Li Lei seemed to have caught something, but it wasn't quite clear. Tan Ying said, "Well, even if you are right, you must be on guard against others. Before you completely understand Miss Ye's origins, I do not recommend that you marry her." Li Lei smiled bitterly. He couldn't marry now even if he wanted to. The time was not right and he hadn't completely settled the Li family yet. He couldn't let Xiao Ling marry into such a dangerous place. In time, he would give her a safe and happy home. He avoided the topic and asked Tan Ying, "What else was found?" Tan Ying looked unhappy, her handwriting. Handwriting, Li Lei had an ominous premonition. It was also when her temperament and abilities began to change more than 2 years ago. Her handwriting also changed. It was completely different from the handwriting she wrote when she was younger. I took it to a handwriting expert for appraisal, and all the experts agreed that this cannot be the handwriting of the same person. Tan Ying raised her head and looked at Li Lei. Boss, I really hope she is just a spy. Why do you say that? The ominous premonition in Li Lei's heart became even stronger. After learning that there were differences in M's handwriting, I carefully investigated her past history. Many people said that she resembled the late Queen Xiaoling. It started when she sang the song Siren more than 2 years ago. Yes. By some strange coincidence, I retrieved a copy of Xiaoling's handwriting and took it for appraisal. The experts who received it said that it was written by the same person. What, this time, even Li Lei, who was used to big scenes, was completely shocked. You say it again? This is impossible. Xiaoling is dead. Besides, their birthdays are wrong. His Xiaoling, how could it be Xiaoling? This is the worst outcome that he has been unwilling to think about. Tan Ying is right. At this moment, how much he hopes Xiaoling is just a spy. No matter which family sent her as a spy or even a killer, it would be better than if she were Xiaoling. This is impossible. Li Lei forced himself to calm down. There must be something wrong. The time when Miss Ye's temperament changed suddenly was the time when Xiaoling died. In other words, after Xiaoling's death, Ye Xingling began to change. Tan Ying said, as if to extinguish Li Lei's luck, I can't believe it either. This is simply unbelievable. Is Xiaoling not dead? Could it be that she had plastic surgery and became Ye Xingling incognito? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 360. Chapter 360. It's just different. Li Lei still didn't want to believe it. She can't be Xiaoling's. After Xiaoling's death, everyone saw how sad Pei Xian was. He almost turned against the entire family in order to bury Xiaoling in his ancestral grave, and he still paid homage to her every year, searching for people similar to her everywhere. If Xiaoling was still alive, and it was Ye Xingling, Pei Xian would have come to kill her. Perhaps Pei Xian doesn't know the truth either. Tan Ying. Why? As soon as Li Lei asked the question, he suddenly remembered the information that old man Bao had investigated. 2 or 3 years ago, Xiaoling was imprisoned and humiliated by Pei Xian. Maybe it was because of what happened at that time that she couldn't bear it and escaped out. If this is the case, how much hardship has his Xiaoling endured? His heart clenched in pain, and he wanted to hold her in his arms immediately to comfort her. Unfortunately, Tan Ying didn't know what happened to Xiaoling, and said in confusion, she and Pei Xian have such a good relationship, there is no need to hide from Pei Xian. There is another possibility, dual personality, hysteria. But the probability is very low. Li Lei's eyes lit up, as if he had grasped a life-saving straw. Dual personality, hysteria. Yes, Tan Ying said, I consulted some experts, and there are indeed such cases. Some mentally fragile people, when severely stimulated, will split off a second personality, which is completely different from the original personality. The Miss Ye you love may be the second personality of Ye Xingling. However, there is something unexplainable here. The main personality and the second personality usually appear alternately, and it is impossible for the main personality to be the same in the past 2 years. Personality never showed up. What about hysteria? What's going on? Li Lei asked. Tan Ying said, hysteria is also caused by severe stimulation. The patient will imagine herself to be someone else, and her words, deeds, and even handwriting can be imitated exactly like that person. But there is also the same problem as dual personality here, hysteria. The period is very short-lived and intermittent, and it is unlikely to last for more than 2 years. Other than that, is there no other explanation? Li Lei looked unhappy. Tan Ying shook his head, no more. If the suspicion of a spy is ruled out, Miss Ye may be in 3 situations: the first, a rare case of dual personality. The second, a rare case of hysteria. The third, she is Xia Iya himself. Li Lei rubbed his eyebrows and thought for a long time. According to Xiaoling's birth date, she is 30 years old this year, or she thinks she is 30 years old. Wait a minute, the birth date is engraved on the amulet. Did she tell Master Xia? If she has a dual personality or hysteria and makes up a fictitious birthday for herself, will the amulet become invalid? Li Lei's heart skipped a beat, and he thought for a moment. When he asked for the amulet, he also gave Xiaoling's birth date to Master Xia. What he gave was the birth date on Ye Xingling's own ID card. However, at that time, Master Xia did not carve the birth date into the sycamore wood. Instead, he found Xiaoling alone and carved a new birth date. Why? Did Master Xia know that the birth date was wrong from the beginning? Why didn't Master Xia say anything? Why did he go to find Xiaoling alone? Is there something that no one else should know? Li Lei thought in his mind, Kuashi Xia must know something, there must be some secret between him and Xiaoling. Li Lei raised his head and said to Tan Ying, go and check on a person for me, the national preceptor whose whereabouts are erratic. Your Majesty, the national preceptor? Tan Ying has been loyal to the Li family all his life. Mr. Li believes in metaphysics, and the subordinates in the family have heard about these things to some extent. Tan Ying had heard of that man's name a long time ago and knew how unattainable he was. There are countless forces in the world who want to find the imperial master. Some have been looking for more than 10 years but have not been found. I just want to find him. I can do my best, but boss, Miss Ye's matter really cannot fall on him. Li Lei also understood. He suddenly felt that this matter was even weirder. The man who could not be found in the whole world for more than 10 years, the man who could see through the fate of his family or even the country at a glance, would do everything for Xiaoling in just a few months. Appear twice? It's becoming more and more confusing. Rare cases cannot be verified, Li Lei said slowly and made a decision. We will use the elimination method to start with the most feasible verification, to verify whether Xiaoling is actually Xiaoling. Tan Ying had no objection and sorted out her thoughts. The first thing we need to find out is whether Xiaoling is dead or not. She fell off the stage and died. It was very sensational. I will tell the story about that incident right now, check it out. Li Lei gave him a contact information. Old man Bao has been investigating this incident, you can contact him. Tan Ying took it, stood up, said goodbye to Li Lei and left. Li Lei sat in the study for a long time. Xiaoling fell asleep in a daze. When she woke up, she found that Li Lei was not in the bedroom. She lowered her head and realized that she must have been bathed by him. She had the fragrance of shower gel on her body, and she was wearing soft velvet pajamas. Even the bedding was newly changed. Her body was still very sore, and she rolled around on the bed, moaning a few times, and felt hungry again from last night to now. She hadn't eaten for almost 24 hours, and she had been beaten by Li Lei. After tossing and turning on the bed so many times, I was already dying. You bastard, you big bastard, don't care about me when you're full. She muttered to herself, climbed down from the large and luxurious bed with sore hands and feet, and staggered out of the bedroom with her bare feet. The entire villa is covered with thick carpets, and the central air conditioning has a moderate temperature and is very comfortable. Xiaoling originally wanted to go downstairs to look for food. However, when she passed by the study, she found that the door was half open and she could faintly see Li Lei sitting inside. She forgot about being hungry for a moment and opened the door to find him. Hey, what are you thinking about? He looked very worried, which made Xiaoling feel a little lower inexplicably. She knelt down beside him and looked up at him. Are you worried? Only then did Li Lei notice her. The gloomy look on his face disappeared. He smiled and pinched her face. Are you awake? He then looked at her bare feet and said, she's not wearing a pair of shoes either. Who on earth was she? Not Xiaoling. Had she acted coquettishly and cutely in front of Pei Ziyan without any grudges before? She was so innocent and cute, how could Pei Ziyan be so cruel and humiliating to her over and over again? When he thought of this, his heart felt like it had been burned by fire, and it hurt. Xiaoling was unaware of his thoughts and only said, I'm hungry. What do you want to eat? He smiled softly and picked her up from the carpet. I'll ask the servant to cook it for you. Just send me away with the food cooked by the servant. Woohoo! Xiaoling was unhappy. Sure enough, there was a difference between sleeping with and without sleeping. You used to cook for me yourself, but now. Woohoo, you stinky gangster. End of this chapter.